Yeah, welcome back to the Renew U Students YouTube channel. We have been going through the book of Mark about this gospel, about who Jesus is, and what does that mean to us. And we've already gone through the beginning of his ministry, how he did many miracles, and was people around him were just shocked and amazed about who he was, while the Pharisees were really frustrated and mad about his teachings and wanted to, dispose of him. And the last time that we talked, we went through one of his very famous parables, this short stories that he did in which he was trying to communicate a lesson. And this parable was about what do we do when we accept the message that Jesus has? Do we actually do something about it, or do we ignore it? And we'll continue on now with a story about who Jesus is towards the disciples that were along with around him. So between that parable and the Mark, we see multiple different teachings about Jesus talking about the kingdom of God. What does it mean to the people around us? What does it mean for where we are right now? And how does the kingdom of God, express itself? Does it happen in secret ways? Does it happen, within the heart of people? But we get to then, after he's doing these teachings, that we have like a pause and we follow now what's happening with Jesus and the disciples. So in Mark chapter 4, verse 35, it says, "On that day when evening had come, he had said to them, 'Let us go across to the other side.' And leaving the crowd, they took him with them in the boat, just as he was, and other boats were with him. And a great windstorm arose, and the waves were breaking into the boat, so that the boat was already filling. But he was in the stern, asleep," this is Jesus, "on a cushion. And they woke him and said to him, 'Teacher, do you not care that we are perishing?' And he awoke and rebuked the winds and said to the sea, 'Peace, be still.' And the wind ceased, and there was a great calm. He said to them, 'Why are you so afraid? Have you still no faith?' And they were filled with great fear and said to one another, 'Who then is this, that even the wind and the sea obey him?'"
So this is a very interesting story here, because up until this point, Jesus had been walking with the disciples and he'd been doing miracles, and so they've seen him in action. And so when they get in this boat and they start traveling across the sea, it's not uncommon for there to suddenly be a storm, because the sea that they were on, this happened pretty frequently. And so the disciples were kind of used to this type of a thing. And so what they would do typically is they would work together and they would take buckets and they would take the water out of the boat. That way the boat doesn't sink with all the water inside of it. And so what they were doing was they came to Jesus because in the middle of a storm, he's completely asleep. And in the disciples' mind, they're thinking, we need an extra pair of hands to help us get water out of this boat, otherwise we're going to sink. And so they rush down there and they're waking him up. They're saying, "Jesus, do you not care that we are about to die? You need to come help us now." And Jesus looks at them and he goes, okay, so he leaves his cushion, and instead of helping them, he does something different. He speaks to the wind, the waves, and the sea and says, "Peace, be still." And instantly everything becomes calm again. And he looks back at the disciples and he goes, "Why are you so afraid? Do you not have faith?" And the disciples get really freaked out because they didn't wake up Jesus to come and calm the wind and the waves and the sea. But that's what he did. They had woken him up so that way he could help them get water out of the boat. And so it really leaves them with this question of, well, who is this then? Because like I said, up to this point, they had seen him heal people. They had seen him cast out demons, and they've seen him teach parables. All of those things were not uncommon for a rabbi in those days to do. But the fact that Jesus spoke to the wind, the waves, and the sea, and it obeyed him, it spoke to that he was something greater than they could imagine. It spoke to that he was more powerful than the wind, the waves, and the sea. And it scared them because they're like, well, who's in the boat with us? Like, we thought we just had a regular teacher with us, even though all along he had been telling them that he was the Son of God. And so for them to see this in action in a really weird, real way, it was an extremely powerful moment, and it left them wondering who actually Jesus was. And so it leaves us with the question too of, if Jesus really is that powerful, if he really is the Son of God, how do we respond to that? How do we then wrestle with this new image of Jesus, of him being the Son of God and having that kind of power? How then do we take that? Going back to our previous lesson, do we accept who Jesus is and allow that to grow in us? Or do we just take that as, okay, that's a cool story, but that doesn't really mean anything for me? Or kind of somewhere in between. And if Jesus really is the Son of God, as he's kind of demonstrating in this story here, it kind of changes how we maybe view him. It maybe changes our perception of him. Because instead of helping us the way we think he's going to help us, maybe he's going to do something different. Maybe he's going to come in with more power and more force in our lives, leaving us wondering, well, then who is this? And so we'll leave you with that question today of, if Jesus is the Son of God, how are you going to respond? If he really can speak to the wind, the waves, and the sea, and it be instantly calm, what then do we do with that? How do we react to the Son of God who has power over nature? And we'll talk more about this as we continue on, because obviously this is a kind of a key point here of, he's not just a teacher, he is also the Son of God. And what do we do with that? And so we'll talk about this more next week. We'll see you.
See you.